Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Broadcasting live from Lakewood, New Jersey. I'm here with my student Gal. Hashem should bless him. Talmud Muvuk. Hashem should give him siyata d'shmaya to continue to do the great things that he's doing for his Rebbe, for his yeshiva, and for Klal Yisrael. Tonight we have a very special share, and I'm asking Borei Olam for special help. I'm a little bit under the weather, and I'm asking Borei Olam for the kochot, the siyata d'shmaya, the memory, the nesiyat chen, and the words, to be able to give over this class, because we're holding now in a time that the message and the theme of tonight's share is more apropos than ever. Mamash kacha. Our yeshivot are closed in Brooklyn. I don't know what's going on in the rest of the world. I get emails from Montreal and France and Israel. I got an email from Australia last week. Hashem should bless them. I'm not sure what's going on in the rest of the world. In Brooklyn, New York, the mayor, the governor, our yeshivot are closed. Baruch Hashem, our shuls are open. And much of the Torah that's going on now are going on in our shuls. Some of the shuls have a sign on the front door, and the sign says, the synagogue is closed. And then on the sign in Hebrew it says, Yesh delet me'achora. Yesh delet me'achora. And the reason why I'm telling you this is not to open up with a joke. It's not a joke. What we're living through now is no joking matter. But there's a big concept in Yesh delet me'achora. Big concept. If you know, Mashiach is going to be brought through the back door. Yesh delet me'achora. Mashiach, if you watch the paper trail, the Davidic dynasty throughout all the years, every step of the way, from the get-go all the way down to the bringing of the Mashiach, was never out in the open. It was always Yesh delet me'achora. Sodom, which Brooklyn, New York looks like Sodom now. Sodom, Gotham City, Sodom. But from Sodom, you know who came from Sodom? David HaMelech. The daughters of Lot. The roots of David. Ruth HaMoaviyah. From Sodom, the last place in the planet the Yetzer Hara would look to think that the Davidic dynasty would begin, and that's where it began, from the back door. From Sodom. From Lot. From an act of purgatory, an act of horrific, a father and daughters. The last place in the world you would expect it to come from, that's where it came from. Mashiach comes from the back door. And then the next step down the line, you have Yehuda and Tamar. Oh, the last place Yetzer Hara would look. And sure enough, that's the next step towards the line of kings. The back door. The last place you'd look. And even David HaMelech, if you know the story about his mother and his father, whose father sent her away, and then she came back, and all the rumors. But sure enough, David HaMelech, from some place you wouldn't expect, the last place you look, the back door. Ruth HaMoaviyah. Up until that point, we didn't even know if we can even take converts from the land of Moav. Ammon and Moav? Lo yavim Ammon Moav b'kal Hashem. We had to wait for this generation to come up with Moavi v'lo Moaviyah, Ammoni v'lo Ammoniyah. a place you would never look or believe that that's where the Mashiach is coming. The back door. So know what I'm telling you now. Just like every step in the generations prior, every step of the fourth steps and comings from the beginning till now of that dynasty of Melech HaMashiach and his grassroots always is introduced through the back door. The final generation, the final moment when Mashiach comes, is going to be a generation that comes and serves Hashem through the back door. And that's what we're doing right now. Unbelievable. And that's why, Rabotai, although I'm under the weather tonight, and I was actually thinking of canceling tonight's class, I'm in a lot of pain. But, Baruch Hashem, Shtabach Shem Olad, believe me, this is where we get hayut. We spend some time together. I look to speak with you all week. And I'm lucky enough to have the zechut to speak to so many of you twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, every week. Tonight, the most important message in a generation that's serving Hashem through the back door is like what they say in real estate. Tefilla, tefilla, tefilla. That's right. That's the location. Tefilla, tefilla, tefilla. Today, you want to bring him back door. Tefillah. No matter what is going on, the tefillot is what is going to bring the final redemption. And Rabotai, I want to tell you something. We're in a month, Mar Heshvan. But the Mar could also become Ram. Ram al Kol Goyim Hashem. This could be the month that we could be raised up amongst and above all the Goyim. This could be the month of Geulah. The Bnei Yisachar writes that in the month of Cheshvan, it's going to start the Chinuch Bet HaMikdash. We can get it in this month. We have so much to look forward to. And I'd like to put out there a little food for thought. And it's just a cute thing to think about. Don't take this too much to heart. Don't go around saying, oh, Rabbi Duvi said nothing. I am telling you a cute pshat. Do you know that Haman, when he was going through all the months, he was looking to see which month he should attack the Jewish people. Very interesting. Which month should he attack the Jewish people? He pilpur hu agoral. He took dice, and he spun the dice, and he was going through the combinations through his black magic. Which month to attack the Jewish people? What month are we vulnerable? And he went through every month. Nisan, no. Pesach, Yetziat Mitzrayim. He went through every single month, and every month he found his zechut. Finally, he lands on the month of Adar, because he said to himself, the greatest Jew who ever lived, Moshe Rabbeinu, who we will be talking about tonight, Moshe Rabbeinu passed away in that month. And like the Gemara says, little did he know that not only did Moshe pass away in that month, Moshe also was born on that month. But it's interesting. Do you know that Haman had a second choice? I found this in a sefer. A second choice. Where if it's not going to be Adar, it's going to be the month of Heshvan. Because of Mar Heshvan. because he wanted to make sure he got the right bitter month. And come on, it's the middle name of the month. Mar Heshvan. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to come up with this one. Haman says if it's not going to be Adar, it's going to be Mar Heshvan. He liked Adar better because he felt that Adar not only didn't have a zechut, but it also had the opposite. It already had the fall of the greatest Jew. So he figured Gilgul Shvua, you know what I mean? He's going to be Megalgel, fall to fall. So once he already had the greatest Jew fall in that month, so we'll knock the rest of the dominoes down in that month as well. But really, he was thinking about the month of Heshvan. Because Haman said in the month of Heshvan, they have no zchuyot. That's why it's called Mar Heshvan. I always thought to myself, now that we have Adar, we have the holiday of Purim. Now that Adar has the holiday of Purim, which we know the holiday of Purim is Kippurim, we also know the holiday of Purim is the amazing Chag that even when Mashiach comes, it's still going to be here. So talking about a Chag, this is a great Chag. Actually, it's going to outlast most of the Chagim of Klal Yisrael. So don't mess with Purim. Now the month of Adar, which in the scales of Hashivut, at least in Haman's eyes, was very low. That's why he attacked us. Now it became the highest of the high. V'nahafochu, that was the month of Adar. So now, if you think about it, which month is left, the only month that has nothing? Heshvan. I always thought to myself, why? Couldn't have Hashem brought some nes, some great tzaddik, some tzaddiket, somebody should born in the month, maybe a big yard site, maybe make a nes in the month, something to commemorate, throw us a chag. It happens to be the month after Tishrei, which is packed. I thought to myself, maybe from the beginning of time, this month was earmarked and put away to be placed on the shelf for something that we're all waiting for. And just like the month of Adar went from a month that L'chora, in the eyes of Haman, had nothing and then some, and then went to the highest month. Who knows? Maybe Heshvan, like the Bnei Yisachar writes, that in the month of Heshvan is going to begin the chinuch of the Bayit Shalishi. Maybe this month was always by Borei Olam put aside quietly, earmarked. Don't worry, Heshvan, don't cry. I didn't forget about you. You're going to be the one that's going to be carrying what we've always been waiting for. Bayit Shalishi. Geula Krova. We should be zocheh to see Be'ezrat Hashem something great in the month of Heshvan. But the only way to get there is Tefilla. And that's what I want to talk to you tonight about. I have a magnificent idea that I want to share with you. I've spoken about this in the past, and it's something that I'd like to again grow with you. And that is, and it might seem comical, but one of the most important psukim in the story of Noach is not found in the parasha of Noach. It's actually the last pasuk, Parashat Bereshit. Ve'Noach matza chen be'enei Hashem. Wow. And Noach found favor in Hashem's eyes. I mean, that's his name. His name is Noach. Noach is Noach Hen. Hen Noach, right? It's the same letters. Noach matza chen be'enei Hashem. Noach found chen in Hashem's eyes. What does that mean? Says the Gemara something very powerful. Forgive me, I need the strength for tonight. What does that mean that Noach found chen in Hashem's eyes? Says the Gemara, a startling eye-opener. Something that many people don't know. Noach was supposed to die in the Mabul with everybody else. The Gemara says so, very clearly. The Gemara explains that Noach was actually liable for two very big mistakes. And those mistakes were supposed to cost his life and his whole family. And in truth, Hashem was going to destroy the world through the Mabul, of course, Hashem was going to put the whole world right back to a sense of a flood. And how does he do that? Well, I guess you could say for everyone out there who's learning the sugyot of chulin, or the sugyot of hachshara or hechsher kelim, you've heard of this concept called ha'agala, right? You've heard of this concept. When a keli goes bad, and we put it in boiling hot water, Hashem did that with the whole world. He basically took a pure, beautiful world that was mitameh al yedeh, man and the animals who went bad, and then he kind of immersed it in boiling lava, boiling liquid fire, boiling hot water, way past Yad Soledet, that much I guarantee you. And he literally did Hagala on the world, cleansed the world, kashered the keli, to now make it parv and start over again. And Noach was supposed to be part of the plan. Noach was supposed to pass away as well, along with the rest of the generation, even though he was righteous. But he made two very big mistakes, and those mistakes would cost his life. The first mistake, says Chazal, he did not pray for his generation. Noach was supposed to pray for the Dor, the job of the tzaddikim, the job of the chachamim, the rabbanim. You must pray for the people and ask Borei Olam to be merachem. Do you know that every day we have in the blessing of Hashivenu Avinu L'Toratecha, V'korvenu Malkeinu La'avodat, V'hazirenu B'teshuva Shelema Lefanecha, Yiratzon L'fanecha, Shetachtor Chatira V'tacha Kisei Kvodecha, L'achzir B'teshuva Kol Posh'ei Amcha Yisrael, U'bichlalam Tachzireni Li Chaim Davidov Ben Chayesara, Ki imecha peshuta, ki yadecha rather peshuta, likabel shavim. Every day we're required to pray for others and ask Hashem, help them come back b'tshuva. Are you going to ask me the Maharsha's question on Daf Yud Amud Aleph in Masechet Berachot on the famous story of Reb Meir and Bruria? Lo b'shamayim hi. Hakomen hashamayim, chutz mirat shamayim. So could you pray for somebody else to do teshuvah? Great question. It's the Maharsha's question. And there are many beautiful answers. Beautiful answers. The famous answer we always spoke about was the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish is mashal. I know you heard this from me in the past, but don't worry, this is just a side dish. We're going to get to the meat and potatoes in a minute, and I have a steak for you tonight, so don't worry. But the Chazon Ish, who told us that famous mashal of the guys on the ship, and they're walking down the hall, and they hear inside one of the cabins, one of the rooms, one of the passengers, they hear a sound that sounds like a drilling. So they bang on the door, and they push the door open. They see a guy sitting on the floor of his room, of his cabin, with a drill. And he's drilling a hole through the floor of his... They said, are you crazy? What are you doing? He says, excuse me, gentlemen, you go right out the door you came in from. This is my room. I rented this room. This room is mine for this trip, and you cannot tell me what to do with it. They look at him and they say, Meshugana, you can do whatever you want in this room, but if you're going to drill a hole through that floor, it's not just you who's going down. We're going down with you. We're going down with you. If you go down, we all go down. Says a Chazon Ish, if Klal Yisrael would only know that we are Ke'ish Echad Ubelev Echad. We found that out by Matan Torah. Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar. Vayichan Milashon Yachid, says Rashi. Vayichan Milashon Yachid. We were considered like one person. Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar. We rested in front of the mountain of Sinai. Vayichan Milashon Yachid. Ke'ish Echad ubelev echad. There was such achdut, but you should know that the achdut works both ways. Achdut, we go up together, but also achdut, we go down together. We're liable for each other. And if one guy is drilling a hole through the floor of the ship, we're all going down with him. Says the Chazon Ish, that's why you're allowed to pray for the tshuva of another Jew, because it directly affects you. It's like a guy saying, well, it's only my left hand. My right hand feels okay and I'm a righty. It's a part of your body. You can't discriminate and you can't detach your left hand from your right hand. It's all part of one. So the same way you can pray for yourself, you can pray for the extender or extension of yourself. This is one answer the Chazon Ish gives. Another answer that's given by many of the Mefarshim is that it doesn't mean that when you're praying to Shamayim, you're asking Hashem to take the freedom of choice or the freedom of will to go and take away from this guy his choice of doing right or wrong. That's not what it means. When you pray for someone to do teshuvah, you're asking Hashem, either help him out, send him a Rebbe. Send him a Rebbe. Let him bump into somebody that would catch his fancy, that would catch his ear, that would move him, that would inspire him. Let him by mistake pick up a CD. And do you know how many stories I know? Do you know how many stories I know of people who were standing by a car wash waiting for their car to be washed? And they said, okay, they were sitting there doing nothing. So they picked up a CD. I mean, I'm talking about back in the days of Abraham Lincoln when people listened to CDs. Today, I don't know how many people listen to CDs anymore. But this I'm talking about, many hundreds of years. He pick up a CD because they had nothing to do. And they figured, okay, I'll listen to it on the way home. And they throw the CD in once they got their nice polished car back. And little did they know, from that one CD, it wasn't the car that went through the car wash. It was their neshama that went through the car wash. You know how many people told me that they picked up a CD, drove home, and the time they got home, they were so deep into the shir, they didn't get out of the car. They sat in the car, running in their driveway for another 45 minutes until the class ended. Hashem, when we pray to Hashem for another Jew to do teshuvah, we're not telling Hashem to take away his free will, his freedom of choice. No. We're asking Hashem to be merachem and give him a little bit of an extra hand. What we call siyata dishmaya. Give him a little bit more siyata dishmaya. Let him bump into a new Rebbe. Let him bump into a rabbi that happened to come by his store. You know how many stories? Rabbis that were lost in New York City because they were collecting. They bumped into some guy in his store, literally by mistake. They made a friendship. And the guy invites the rabbi over for Shabbat because it's a rabbi from Israel. And then that Shabbat, this rabbi from Israel turns the entire family upside down into religious Ba'alei Teshuvah. You know how many stories? So we ask Hashem, make another story. Rabbi Duvi needs more stories. Make another story. Please. Return b'teshuvah. All those Posh'ei Yisrael. Al tikre chot'eim ela chata'im. You know who said that? Bruria to Rabbi Meir Balanes, to her husband. Yitamu chata'im min haaretz. She says, it doesn't say yitamu chot'im min haaretz. It doesn't say to annihilate and eradicate the sinners. It says eradicate the sins, not the sinners. And if that's the case, we need a daven for those who need siyata dishmaya. All those kids at risk, all those people who didn't know better, who weren't fortunate to grow up with a yeshiva, all those that fell into all types of nisyonot and fell and need siyata dishmaya. Hashem should help them to be put back on their feet and given a second chance. Those who we're praying for, and that we can pray for. Because we're not altering their decision. We're helping them to live up to a better decision maker. And there are many beautiful pshatim in this. But you get it, I think. At the end of the day, we can pray for other people to do teshuvah. And this was the first big mistake of Noach. He did not pray for his generation. He did not pray for anyone in the generation to do teshuvah. And he didn't pray for the mercy of God on the generation. Tzaddikim need to know that they need to pray for the mercy of their people and the generation. Do you know that two very prominent principles of a famous yeshiva in Bnei Brak? Yeshiva Ktana, not a yeshiva Gedola, yeshiva like an elementary school. They came to Rav Steinemann, and they told Rav Steinemann that they want the reshut to throw a certain boy out of the yeshiva. And Rav Steinemann turns to these two principals and says to him, "What's the boy's name and what's his mother's name?" And they said, "We don't know." Steinman says, "Us? What do you mean you don't know? You're holding by throwing a boy out of the yeshiva, and you weren't davening for him for months? You don't know the boy's name? You don't know his mother's name? You're coming and asking me to the reshut to throw him out of yeshiva? Daven for him. Don't throw him out. Daven for him." People have forgotten that role. They've forgotten that role of a Rebbe davening for Talmidim. If the Talmidim are truly banayhem, the Torah tells us the Talmidim is kebanim. Wouldn't you pray for your children? You pray for your Talmidim. You pray for your children. You pray for your Talmidim. It's the same thing. In Hashem's eyes, no different. There's a biological bond to a child, and there's a Torah bond to the child. And it's interesting. In the next world, the Torah bond is stronger than the biological bond. Scary stuff. Arizal. In the next world, different avotu banim. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Many rabbis who never was zochet to children, like the Chazon Ish, but in the next world, he's going to have plenty of children because he has thousands of Talmidim, and all those who learn the Svarim and the Chazon Ish is also considered Talmidim. In the next world, they're considered the children of Chazon Ish. As an example, Chazon Ish didn't have children. Unbelievable. Rabotai, Noach was supposed to pray for his generation to be saved, and he didn't pray. Noach was supposed to be active and out there to be choser b'tshuva, his generation. And in 120 years of building this incredible ship, this incredible teva, in 120 years, with all the debates and all the people coming and asking questions, Noah, what are you building? You know that famous skit. Noah, what are you building? In 120 years, and all the debates, and telling everybody, Hashem is angry. Hashem is going to bring a mabul. This is not a joke. The world is going to be finished. You weren't choser b'tshuva, one person, one guy, 120 years. And because of these two big mistakes, Noach was destined to die with his generation in the Mabul. And the only reason why he didn't, says the Gemara, is V'Noach matzah chen b'nei Hashem. There was a certain chen, there was a certain grace that Noach found in the eyes of Hashem that saved him and his family from a gezerah that he was supposed to be a part of. And the question tonight is, what was that zechut? What was that chen? What saved the life of Noach and his entire family and the story of the Teva, in spite of the fact that he was really under the gezerah to die with everybody else? And by the way, I just want to tell you, if you take a look in the works of the Navi, and you'll see this in the book of Devarim and Haftarah, you'll see that the Navi refers to the Mabul as Me Noach. They literally labeled it his Mabul. They really put on him the omen of this Mabul is his fault. They actually take a look at the words in the Navi, in the Haftarah, in Devarim. Me Noach. I think it's Parashat Ve'et Hanan, I believe it is. The Haftarah.
Noach, no?
Which one?
Noach, I think, right?
No, it's in the book of Devarim. It's in the book of Devarim. I'm pretty sure it's in Parashat Ve'et Hanan, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken. I know it's in one of the parashiot in the Nachamu Amiz Ve'et Hanan. So maybe it's next week. Maybe it's Kitetse. One of them. It's one of the parashiot of Devarim. I remember clearly. I have to take a look. One of the parashiot of Devarim, the Haftarah of Shabbat, over there says clear. The Navi refers to it as Me Noach. That means that we literally point the finger at him as his fault that this Mabul came. Why? You could have saved the generation. You could have prevented the Mabul. You would have prayed for the generation. Hashem might not have brought it. You would have brought the generation back b'tshuva. Hashem might not have brought it. And therefore, because you didn't pray for them and you didn't bring them back b'tshuva, the sin of the generation is in your hand. And therefore, the finger was pointed at Noach. Me Noach. Powerful. So what was the zechut that got Noach to survive nonetheless? Ladies and gentlemen, open your hearts. This is something that's, I think, magnificent. It's an Arizal that I'd like to repeat over to you. And I'm hoping that you remember this one for a long time. The Arizal writes something that's a real eye-opener. You know, we're coming out from the month of Tishrei that we were not saying Anna. We were not saying Tahnun. However, now we're starting the new month and we're back to saying Nefilat Apayim. And here we say in the original Ashamnu. We start from the beginning, Ana Hashem. And then we say the Ashamnu. And then at the end we say Chatanu, Avinu, Vashanu, Anachnu, Va'avotenu, Va'antre Betenu. Hashem, forgive us. We sinned. Our fathers sinned. Our household people sinned. Anachnu, Va'avotenu, Va'antre Betenu. All of us. Forgive us. Isn't that a chutzpah? Isn't that terrible chutzpah? You know, it's one thing to say that you sinned. Va'avotenu? Is that something to say? And my father sinned? That's the way a son speaks about a father? You're able to announce and proclaim, I sinned and my father sinned? You sinned, that's one thing. But to talk like that about your father, is that the way to speak? Is that kavod? Anachnu va'avotenu v'antre betenu? Rabotai, listen to this Arizal. This Arizal rewrites the books. Says the Arizal, in fact, a magnificent klal in Kabbalah. Again, I don't know from the Kabbalistic secrets. I wish I did. But for that, you need a Rebbe, like everything in this world. And in yeshiva, you know, we were taught those 10 Masechtot. We were taught those 10 Masechtot. We were taught Nashim, we were taught Nizikin. And then obviously, you know, later, Night Seder, we were taught Kodshim. And then after that, after we got married, we were taught some halacha. Maybe we went for a little bit of a smicha, nida, and so on. But we weren't taught the mystic. We weren't taught the Kabbalah, the secrets. And as we get older, I assume we'll be zochet to find the right Rebbe to be able to learn that. But until then, let's just talk the pshat. The Arizal tells us a beautiful secret. And we'll say it over on the level of the pshat. And he says you should know. There's a concept called Gilgul Neshama. Gilgul Neshama simply means that the Neshama comes into the world and the Neshama has a mission. Sometimes in the mission, the Neshama makes mistakes and does all different types of pigam that need to be rectified. It needs a tikkun, it needs to be fixed. Sometimes the pigam of the neshama was that it didn't do its mission. And therefore, Hashem in His great Rahmanut, instead of simply just sending the neshama to Gehenna, Hashem says, Neshama, I'm going to give you another chance. I'm going to send you down as a Gilgul, a second round, a second time into the world, and this time, go and fix what you messed up in round one. Or, the second time, go and accomplish what you were supposed to and didn't accomplish in round one. This is a concept called Gilgul Neshama. Says the Arizal something very interesting. The first time Neshama comes down into the world, it's referred to as the Av Neshama, the Abba. Round one, the original. But if that neshama needs a tikkun, after 120 years it goes back up and it still needs tikkun. So Hashem is merachem and sends the neshama back as a gilgul, but round two already, that neshama is called the tolda of the original neshama of the Abba of round one. So the first time comes into the world, Av. Second time the neshama comes into the world as a gilgul to fix what it messed up, tolda. This is very important. Says the Arizal something magnificent. When we are saying Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Anna, where we're saying Borei Olam, please forgive us. We're guilty on all the things we've done, and we've stole, and we spoke Lashon Hara, and we did terrible things, and we say the entire Ashamnu, and then we sign off and we say Anachnu va'avotenu va'anshe beitenu. Not just us who might have messed up in this round, in this world, but also avotenu, our neshama might have been here in previous rounds, or round one as the Av. We're asking you for forgiveness to fix what we messed up in our previous rounds in this world, avotenu, and in this round as well as the Tolda. Wow, what a beautiful pshat. Anachnu v'avotenu v'anshe beitenu. Forgive us for this round and anything we might have messed up in previous rounds that we were here in this world and needs a tikkun. With this stated, you're going to see now a new or gadol on Parashat Noach. You will never read the first pasuk in Parashat Noach the same again. I guarantee you that. Take a look at this. This is amazing. V'Noach matza chen be'enei Hashem. The last pasuk in Bereshit. Noach found grace in Hashem's eyes, and although he was supposed to die with everybody else, Hashem saved him and his entire family because he found chen in Hashem's eyes. What was the chen, we asked? What was this great chen? What was the zechut for Noach to be saved in spite of being part of the Gezerah? And the answer is the next pasuk. The answer is the first pasuk in Parashat Noach. And we're going to find out that it's not Noach that had the zechut, but it is the future Gilgulim that Noach is going to come back as, has such great zechut that already the favor was paid forward. Take a look at this. Noach matzah chen b'nei Hashem. Noach found chen in God's eyes. Noach had this great zechut to live in spite of it all. You know what that zechut was? Ele toledot Noach. These are the toladot. What did the Arizal teach us? The tolda is the gilgul of the original neshama called the Av, right? Ele toledot Noach. These are the gilgulim of Noach in the future. Noach. Noach is going to come back twice. First, he's going to come back as Ish Tzadik, who is called in the Torah Ish Tzadik, Yosef HaTzadik. And then round 2, he's going to come back as not just Ish Tzadik, Tamim Haya B'dorotav, the perfect Jew in his generation. The greatest Jew to live in all generations. Noach will come back in round 2 as, and guess who that is? None other than Moshe Rabbeinu. Says the Arizal, Ele Toledot Noach. You want to know why Hashem saved Noach? Because of the future Gilgulim, who he's coming back as, and the great merit that he's going to have. And for that, Hashem saved him now, al the Tnai, that it's going to be paid forward later on in future Gilgulim. And who are they? Noach. He's coming back twice. Ish Tzadik, Yosef HaTzadik, Tamim Haya B'dorotav, and he's going to come back as the perfect Jew, Moshe Rabbeinu. Now I want to tell you something. This is amazing. This is amazing because we already highlighted that the Gemara told us Noach made 2 mistakes. So it makes sense that he's going to come back as 2 Gilgulim, and each one is going to fix a different mistake. So he comes back as Yosef HaTzadik. Now let's think about this for a minute. Noach, he did not chastise and he did not bring b'tshuva his generation. Someone who had an opportunity to bring people to teshuvah. Someone who had opportunity, hocheach tochiach et amitecha, that he was able to lovingly, gently, softly, be able to be smart in the way of bringing a Jew back to show him how much better he is than that, and to show him the right way. If he doesn't, when he was able to, he's part of the sin itself. What was the sin that brought the Mabul? I didn't ask what sin was the clincher of the Mabul. That we know was Gezel. But what was the sin of the Mabul? It was clearly Arayot. According to all the Midrashim and all the Mefarshim, even the animals weren't loyal to its own species. We'll just leave it at that. So there was so much terrible Arayot. There was so much Shichvat Zera. There was so much Zera al-Batala. There was so much Arayot. By the way, that was part of the boiling hot, molten, boiling liquid fire of lava that came from those volcanic underground sprees or springs that burnt the world, because that's midah keneged midah of the zera levatala, the arayot. It's not something I want to talk about, at least not in public. But this is, that might be an important share one day to figure out how to give, because for an American Jew, we got to understand what we're playing with. And we have to give it over in the right way, not in the wrong way, God forbid. We don't scare people into teshuvah. It's not my style. But you have to see what the books write, on where these averot bring people. So, for the awareness, the sin of the Mabul was arayot, hands down. And if Noach didn't bring the people b'teshuvah when he was able to, then he was considered part of the sin. Me Noach. And if that's the case, how are you going to fix such a terrible national sin of Arayot? He comes back as Ish Tzadik. He comes back as Yosef HaTzadik, says the Arizal, who was put into the biggest Arayot test that any human being had ever faced in history. And he passed. And he was mitaken, the first of the 2 mistakes that Noach did. And I want to tell you that if we're going to compare apples to apples, you should know that Yosef, his victory over Arayot, wasn't just on a one-person level. But Chazal tell us that thanks to Yosef HaTzadik, for 210 years, the entire Jewish nation that was stuck in Egypt, in slavery, in poverty, in difficulty, and not one Jew fell to Arayot in Egypt. And Egypt was the capital of Arayot, of Tumah, of the whole world. The capital. And not one Jew fell. Where'd we get that strength from? Listen, it's still a good record, 5, 10. No, not even one. Not even one. Where'd we get that strength from? Yosef. Yosef in Egypt broke the Arayot with the power of Yaakov Avinu, with the Kiddushat HaTorah, and gave him the strength to be able to withstand that temptation of the Egyptian Arayot. And once Yosef broke it for us, we had in our DNA to be mamshich his strength amongst the men of Klal Yisrael and be able to get through as well. How about the women? The women, the strength came from somewhere else. The women's strength came from Sarah Imenu. When Abraham Avinu went down to Egypt, Sarah was abducted and taken into the house of Paro, and she refused to fall to the temptation of Paro. And because of that, she was the trailblazer to put the strength into the DNA of our women, not to fall in Egypt either. But again, back to our point. Ele toledot Noach. These are the Gilgulim of Noach, says Arizal. Noach, he's coming back twice. First round, East Tzaddik. He's coming back as Yosef to be mitaken the Avera of Arayot of his generation that he should have stopped, and he didn't. So now he has to come back as Yosef HaTzadik to, number one, break the Arayot on an individual level, but also to break the Arayot, thanks to Yosef, on a national level. So this Noach didn't help the Arayot of his gen, but he comes back as Yosef and saves the entire generation from Arayot for 210 years as the Jewish people and their sojourn in Egypt. Amazing, wow. But wait, there's more. And then he comes back a second time. And then Noach comes back as Tamim Haya B'Dorotav, the perfect Jew, Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, Rabotai, open your hearts, because this is so sweet. And when you hear this, I ask you, for me, for you, when we hear this, we stop, we get up from the computer, we do a little rikud. Because I'll tell you why. This past Simchat Torah, many places, even in our shul, although, the door said, synagogue closed, but in Hebrew, yesh dedot me'achora. But even in our shul, which every year we have 300 guys, young guys, dancing and screaming and singing. Simchat Torah in a shul where guys learn is very different, Simchat Torah, than in a shul where guys just pray. Because you could see on the dance floor who's dancing as a bystander and who's dancing as the best friend of the Chatan. You can tell the difference in the dance of who is related to the Chatan and Kala and who came along, heke, because they're remotely related. They stand on the side. You know what I'm saying. But this year, it was modified. Because this year, many people were worried. They were worried maybe the sheriff would come in, all types of talk before Simchat Torah. And because of that, we had to kind of tone it down a notch. Don't worry, it wasn't too, but it was a notch. Modified, a drop in Brooklyn. So you had some guys dancing in their place, which is awesome. But then, after a few hakafot, the place went wild, so it doesn't matter anyways. But tonight, we could use a little bit more of those hakafot to bring back up to par what Simchat Torah every year generally is, in spite of this incredible COVID challenge. Listen to this and let's dance together. Ele toldot Noach, these are the Gilgulim of Noach. Noach, Ish Tzadik, Yosef Tzadik. And then, round 2, Tamim Haya B'dorotav. He's coming back as the greatest of all Jews, Moshe Rabbeinu. Now this is amazing. Paro, he's told by his astronomers. The Khartoumim tell Paro, listen, the Moshe in Yisrael, the Mashiach, he's going to be born. And I tell you that the only way you can bring his downfall is through water. And therefore, we give you advice, Paro. All the Jewish baby boys, make a decree that immediately they should be thrown into the Nile River. They should be killed by water. Paro listened. The Jewish boys were thrown into the river. The Jewish girls were held for all the wrong reasons. And that was the horrific, terrible gezerah. Now, Rabotai, I want to tell you something. We all know that the 2 great midwives that saved the Jewish babies of Klal Yisrael was Zochetu, the 2 great houses, Kehuna and Melucha, Moshe and Aharon. But it turns out that when Moshe Rabbeinu was born as a little baby, Rashi tells us that when he was born, his face lit up the entire house. Right away, Amram, his wife Yocheved, his daughter Miriam, they knew that this baby was something special. And because of that, they start naming him 7 different names. Take a look at the Rashi. The first name they named him was Tuvia. Lama? Because the first time in Torah, the word Tov is mentioned, is Ligabe, Or. So they saw this incredible celestial light that's coming from the baby, so they called him Tov. Tuvia. It's the Tov of God. Then they called him Abigdor, and then they called... You take a look at all the names Rashi tells you there. Mamash, they give this baby so many different names. Isn't it amazing? So many names. And Moshe Rabbeinu is not known, nor did it stick, not one of any of the names that his parents gave him. I mean, isn't that incredible? Wait. So now they decide they're going to save the baby. The Egyptians are coming around from house to house, and they're pricking their babies in order to get the baby to cry, because somehow or other, the crying of babies is infectious. So when one baby hears another baby crying, the baby starts to cry. So they go from house to house, and if you're hiding any baby, the baby, no matter where, would begin to cry, and it would give away its hiding spot. So the Egyptians are coming around. So they knew they had to get rid of this baby Moshe, or this baby Tuvia, or this baby Avigdor, immediately. So they come up with a great plan. Listen to this great plan. You know how we're going to save the baby? We're going to put him in a basket and roll him down the river. Wow. Now there's an A for creativity. I mean, really? What would possess anyone to take an infant baby, newborn, a few days old? You're going to put him in a what? You're going to put him down where? A river? Are you joking? What possessed them? You could have came up with 1,000 different ideas to save the baby. I mean, between me and you, if you were in that position, would you come up with the idea of putting him in a basket down the river? Come on. Maybe you put a few dollars together. The Egyptian police officer comes by. You give him a few bucks. You tell him, keep moving, keep walking. All right. I would assume people would try that. They would try a lot of things. Put him in the attic. Put him here. In a basket down a river. From where? Who would think that way? Rabotai, do you know that the only other place the word Teva is mentioned, besides this week's Parashat Noach, is the basket that baby Moshe was placed in? Do you know that over there in Parashat Shemot, it says that they decided to build a teva and to put the baby inside the teva and send him down the river. You think it's a coincidence that that's the only other time in the entire Torah that the word teva is mentioned? Do you know that there's a cheshbon, that little basket that they built was exactly in proportion to the ratio in number of the little basket to the large teva of Noach, exactly proportionate in ratio? It was built exactly like Noach's teva. It was called a teva, and they put the baby in it. You know why? Because they knew that this baby that was just born is the Gilgul of Noach. And if you want to save baby Noach, what do? You reinvent the wheel? No! If he was saved in a teva and placed in the water in round 1, said Amram Yocheved Miriam, then this baby Gilgul Noach, round 2 or 3, you know how you save him? He's in danger with all the babies. You know how you save him? You put him back in the teva. You put Noach back in the teva and you send him down the river. If Hashem saved him the first round that way, he'll save him this round that way as well. Brilliant. So they put him in a teva and they send him down the river. And sure enough, beautiful. Who is there? Batya, or the Sfaradim pronounce Bitya. Okay. In Yeshiva they said Batya. Batya, Bitya. What was she doing in the river that day? Rabbi Levi told us that she was being tovelet. She was converting to Judaism. Unbelievable. So we caught her at a good moment. we caught her at the moment that she was being Mekadesh herself. She was entering Kedushat Am Yisrael at that moment. And at that moment she sees the teva. And she stretches out her hand, as we all know. And she reaches the teva and brings it to her. And she looks inside and she says, oh, this is a na'ar from the Jews. And she gives him a name. And her name sticks. Her name sticks for all of history. Not the baby's parents' name. Some stranger that found him in the river. Later on, I guess his stepmother. She gives him a name. And that name sticks for all of eternity. And what is the name she gives him? Moshe. Why? Ki min hamayim mishitihu. The minute she opened up and looked inside, she saw Ki min hamayim mishitihu. This is the one that was saved from the waters. This was the one that was drawn out of the waters. This baby was the baby that was saved from the Mabul. This is baby Noah. So she calls him Moshe. Ki min hamayim mishitiu. This is the one that was drawn from the waters and was saved while the rest of the world perished. Moshe Rabbeinu. And now you understand good and well. Moshe's great moment was exactly coming to be mitaken, exactly when Noach went wrong. Noach did not pray for his generation to be saved. And Moshe Rabbeinu, so to speak, rose to the occasion like no one else. As David HaMelech writes in Tehillim, if lulei Moshe avdech, if not for Moshe, that stood up after the Chet HaEgel to cry and beg and negotiate and daven and hold on to the cloak of Hashem and even say with a certain, the Gemara calls it a chutzpah. The Gemara says there are 3 people that spoke to Hashem in a way that wasn't so respectful. Chana was the first, Eliyahu Navi was the second, and Moshe Rabbeinu was the third, says the Gemara over there in the 5th Perek in Berachot. And the Gemara says, Moshe said, Hashem, not letting go of your cloak until you forgive them. I'm not letting go. And Moshe davened for 40 days, day and night, from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippur, until finally he prayed for his generation and he saved his generation. On the 40th day, Yom Kippur, Hashem said, Vayomer Hashem, Salachti Kidvarecha, Moshe Rabbeinu, you saved the Jewish people. And to such an extent, look at the Gemara says, Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, what's the problem? I'll wipe them out and I'll start over with you. Moshe Rabbeinu says, no way. What will I tell the Avot HaKdoshim, he says. And besides, he says, I'm their leader. You know what he was saying? I'm Noach. And this is my job. I came back to be put in the position again. And this time I'm not going to make the mistake as last time. I'm not going to give up on the people. I'm not going to have them get wiped out and start over with my kids the way Noach started over with his kids, watching the rest of his generation getting wiped out. No. That was a little bit of a curveball Borei Olam gave Moshe Rabbeinu. Why don't you be like Noach in round one? Noach in round one, everyone else was perished, and I started over with Noach's children. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm not going to make that mistake in round two. No. I'm going to daven for the generation until you forgive them. And that's exactly what took place. And Hashem said, Salachti Kidvarecha on Yom Kippur, and the Jewish people were forgiven. And the beauty, here's the cherry on top, Moshe Rabbeinu says, and we know that in Parashat Tetzaveh, Moshe's name is not mentioned because of this famous Midrash. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hashem, if you don't forgive the Jewish people, then Macheni na misifrecha, erase me from your books, says the Ari. Mecheni na. Backwards, you know what that spells? Ani Noach. My whole tafkid. May Noach. My whole tafkid in this world is to pray for the generation that I didn't do in round one. And if that's the case, if you don't answer my tefillot, you might as well wipe me out from your books because I serve no purpose. This was the reason why I'm coming back again, to be mitaken and pray for the generation and get you, Hashem, this time to forgive them. Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Look at the koach tefillah. And look how the greatest of the great would have to come back even around and around again just to pray for the Jewish people. The koach tefillah is the greatest and from the greatest koach that the Jewish people have, especially be'et tzara. Make no mistake, we are in an et tzara. There's no question that all the red flags are up. There's no question that we're seeing things that is scary. And what's interesting, and I'm trembling now, and I'm watching my words, not chas v'shalom, to say the wrong thing. But I found something interesting, and this is common denominator between Israel and America and Chutz La'aretz. It's interesting. The Gedolim are very quiet. I've called Eretz Yisrael many times, asking people, going to Reb Chaim, going to this Gadol, going to that Gadol. Generally, they say, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to... They're being very quiet. Here in America, in Brooklyn, Agudat Yisrael, very quiet. So somebody asked me why. Why? Where are the rabbis? Why? Someone just this past week. Where are the rabbis? How come they're being so quiet? How come they're not telling us? They're not giving us direction. You know what I told them? They're too busy davening. They're davening around the clock. They're davening a second to second, minute to minute, moment to moment. They know. Et Sarah Hil Yaakov, umimena yivasheya. This is a very big moment that we're in now. We're in front of an elections. Borei Olam should save us. We're at a time that we're seeing blatant anti-Semitism, and it lost its shame. And it's scary how the dots are being connected to the last few rounds in Berlin, in Spain, and other times that Jews found themselves in these very positions before, God forbid, things went down. I'm not saying chas v'shalom that something terrible is going to happen. Just the opposite. I'm saying something great. I'm davening and hoping will happen. I'm hoping for a geula. But in turmoil comes geula. In imperfection comes geula. Mashiach comes through the back door. Remember, that's the way we open the class. And the power that we have in our hand now is only one. Ein lanu al mi lismoch el Avinu Shabashamayim. Now's the time to take out the Tehillim book. Every day, a few extra kapitel every day. Now's the time to pray for Klal Yisrael. Do you know the poverty? Do you know the poverty that's going on in Eretz Yisrael? Do you know how many people are out of jobs, lost their businesses, entrepreneurs that lost their shirts? All the businesses are closed, and they don't have any stimulus. They gave them a little something for the kids, Pesach time, but that was long gone. Do you know I'm getting videos from the organizations of people that I work with in Israel, that I partner with in Israel, for the Almanot and Yitomim? They're showing me videos of people going through garbage cans, trying to grab, and if you would see the people, they look like dignified people. They lost their businesses. They lost everything. And there's still a seger. Maybe not as strong as before, but financially speaking, just as messed up as before. We need a daven for Klal Yisrael. And I want to tell you, you don't have to go as far as Israel. In our own backyard, you might not hear about it, but the rabbis are hearing how many people are out of jobs, how many people are pleading for food. Quietly, it's starting to pick its way up, and the ripples are coming back at us. Now's the time for Tefilla, to pray for a generation that needs it like never before. And listen to this thought. If we take on the role of Moshe Rabbeinu, who prayed for a generation, we might one day see Moshe Rabbeinu and the generation he prayed for. If you want the zechut to a geula and a yeshua, you need the zechut of Klal Yisrael. One man's zechut is not going to do it. Even a 10-man zechut. But to be able to pray for Klal Yisrael, this is something that's a big idea. We say in the tefillot, in the amidah, we say that the tzaddikim, they're the ones that pray for other people first. This is something now. We need to pray for Klal Yisrael, our families, our communities. We should be zocheh in the power of tefillah, to be Moshe Rabbeinu's generation, and not the generation of Noach. You know why? The generation of Noach, they didn't pray, and they perished. The generation of Moshe Rabbeinu, they prayed for the generation. The generation was forgiven, and they were zocheh, not just to live, but to go on and back to Eretz Yisrael. We should be zocheh to be there very soon, in a month that was waiting to finally host a great moment in Jewish history. Chodesh Tov, Chodesh Cheshvan.